A few announcements before we get started. Silence my phone. So announcement number one is last night we opened our Jewish matchmaking event. It is live. I would love to see this event sell out. So it's on our website, it's on our emails. An email will go out today just with that event. So you cannot miss it because it was further down in the email yesterday. But I would love for everyone at L'Chaim Center to come and bring their children, whatever age, like adult kids, you can bring your neighbors, bring your friends. We rented out a huge theater, a gorgeous theater, the Des Plaines Theater, if anyone Des Plaines, to get that right. And it's actually, they just refurbished the theater. It's absolutely gorgeous. What a miracle. Absolutely gorgeous. If anybody wants to splurge on a VIP ticket or package, like the VIP rooms are so incredible with a mini stage. It'll just be a very small crowd just with.
Would that get my daughter set up a little better?
Yeah, so we're actually having two events going on at the same time.
Gay children.
Everyone. The main event is really the event itself is a 2.5 hour production that Aliza puts on with some live matchmaking on the stage, with her life story, with some of the secrets and surprising things behind having a Netflix series. So she's going to share and bear all on stage to us. That's the 2.5 hour show. But an anonymous donor has sponsored a cocktail hour for singles and also subsidized singles. We're doing like singles under 35 years old. I mean, if I told you how many emails I got this morning, I'm 37, I'm 45. I don't care. I want to make a match. Okay, so come all. We're having for the hour before the show will just be a cocktail hour for singles to meet and mingle, and we're bringing in all the matchmakers in Chicago. So also I know. What day and hand out cards. If you like to dabble in matchmaking, you could also be at this cocktail hour, meaning we want people to hand out their information. And the singles, I have a committee of 2 adorable singles, 1 man, 1 woman, who are helping me with that cocktail hour, because this is not really our demographic. We don't usually work with singles. But they are so excited, and I'm so happy to make this happen for the community at large. They're going to have prizes and initiatives and kind of like games going on that if people actually want to meet, like if people will meet someone at the event and then want to take it further to like actually go out for coffee or go to a Cubs game or to a restaurant, we're giving out like $200 gift cards. Like this has all been sponsored anonymously by a single in town. So this really, if you know anyone that is single, if you know anyone that has singles in their life, on stage, Aliza is going to be teaching us the tools and the tips in how to make matches. She has successfully been involved in helping over 200 couples become one, right? Yeah, coupling. She has been successful in creating many shidduchim and matches throughout her life. So this is for everyone, because we all know people that are looking. It doesn't matter how old someone is. If someone is single, all you need to do is say, "Hey, an idea for you," right? And that's it. I mean, that little bit of effort could go a very long way. And I think we all have it in us to make some matches. I've already made 6 matches, by the way. I have made 6 shidduchim. They all came at a very, very close time in my life. It was all when I was living in Israel. It was like one after another. And then after that, it's been dry. So I need to get back in the game. But I have to tell you, the first time I got the phone call from a friend of mine, by the way, the first shidduch that I made, they just married off their oldest daughter. So I kind of feel a little bit like a grandmother, like a little bit. But the first time I got the call, Mazel Tov, we got engaged, and it was a couple that I put together. I was in a supermarket in Toronto when I got that call. And I remember being so overwhelmed with emotion at that moment that I kind of like found a little corner and I sat down on the floor and I cried. And I'll tell you why. The intense emotion was that I had a part of something so godly. I felt so humbled and so little in this process of two people coming together to become one, I just felt like I was maybe the messenger for these people to come together, but there was such a wave of godliness that went through my hands that I literally had to go into the corner of the supermarket, and I cried in the corner of the market because I felt this wave of being a part of God's master plan. And we know that making a match is, God says this, it is as hard as splitting the sea. That's the way that God explains matchmaking. That it's not a simple thing. It is besheret. It's destined. This is a godly process of bringing two half souls to become one. So that was my introduction for the event. So if you haven't gotten your tickets, sign up and bring everyone you know, schlep them in. We tried to keep the cost of the tickets very, very low. This is a very big production for L'Chaim Center to rent this massive theater, bring in the superstar, and make this all happen. So we just hope, even if this is not something that you're so interested in, still show up for us. Okay, moving on. Tonight, we have a very special Wheel of Wisdom. Every Tuesday night, we have another guest speaker. I'm gonna put an extra special request for all of you to show up tonight because she's a dear friend of mine, Talia Malatsky, who was our speaker over Shavuot. She spoke twice here on the holiday of Shavuot, but I'm kind of curious to see if her message, her way of teaching resonates with you, because as we're revamping a lot of things at the L'Chaim Center, we are looking to expand our classes. And I think she would be a great regular teacher on a weekly basis. And that's what I'm hoping for and aiming for. But I kind of want to hear how you guys connect to her messaging and her style. So that's tonight at 7:30. If you could come, it would be such an honor to have you here. And if you could also give me a little feedback afterwards, it would be so helpful in how we can move forward. Okay, so Julie, any other? Oh, Sunday is the Canasta Social. So, okay, one more. Okay, Ellen, do you want to speak about it for a second? Angie's not here, I don't see. I see Angie's mom, but and Ellen Sachs single-handedly, I'm sure you had some other helpers, but a lot of helpers, but two women decided they wanted to make something incredible happen for the L'Chaim Center. This is a mini fundraiser, and they are going to deck this place out in canasta, like small card tables, and why don't you share?
Oh, well, if you play canasta, you're still welcome to join us. You can still sign up. It's Sunday from 1 to 4. And we'll have some snacks and some raffle prizes and just hang with our friends and play canasta.
Amazing.
So
barbecue. We have a barbecue table. Fish if you want, whatever you want.
Flyers.
Amazing, yeah.
So there's flyers on the table.
Flyers and Okay, well, thank you. Thank you so much. We're so great.
Fun day.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna get started on our class. 11:15 on the dot, which last week we said we're actually gonna start the class at 11:15, so we give a little time for schmoozing and announcements, so we're right on track. Okay, so today is a very special day in the Jewish calendar. Did you know? It's Rosh Chodesh. So today is the new month. It started yesterday, and some months have one day of Rosh Chodesh, and some months have 2 days. And to be honest, yesterday I pull up like to a screeching halt at my kids' school 5 minutes after school started, which is the norm nowadays. Yeah, I'm like, come to a screeching halt, and I look around and I see every single kid is wearing a white shirt, which is the custom in all of, most of my kids' schools. You wear a white shirt to signify Rosh Chodesh. It's very crisp, it's very clean. It's almost like Shabbos clothes. And I roll down my window to my friend Elise Gold, if you know Elise from NCSY JFE. And I said to her, I'm the only one whose kid is wearing a red shirt. And she and she screams back to me across the aisle. She's like, don't worry, you have another chance tomorrow. Like, thank God. So anyway, so all my boys wore white shirts today. We nailed it, the second chance. So today it's Rosh Chodesh. So truth be told, every month has a different energy. And now we're going into the harder energies of the calendar year. So Tammuz and Av are the more complicated months. And whoever was here on Saturday for the Parsha class, we spoke about the seeds of sadness that were put into the world last week's Torah portion with the sin of the spies, when people spoke badly about the land of Israel. So on that day that the Jewish people cried all night for no reason. It was just what was in their thought, their, perceptions of things. We went through all the reasons that this day was such a tragedy, but God says, if you cried for no reason, I will give you reason to cry on the same day. And this is when some harder things are put into kind of like the DNA of the Jewish people. So we are now starting. Tammuz doesn't have, it's not like, woohoo, it's Tammuz. It's not like, that's not the month to go all out. Tammuz, towards the end of Tammuz, actually the 17th of Tammuz, Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, is a fast day, which kicks off 3 sad weeks, culminating in another fast day. We have 5 fast days a year, culminating in the fast of the 9th of Av. So we have 3 sad weeks, and it starts in this month. So how can we start this month in a positive way? Okay, because I read the books this morning. I'm like, give me something good. Okay, give me something positive about this month. And the only thing that I could really say, because it's not like we have any celebrations in this month, we just have that fast day that kind of kicks off a sad period. But the one thing that you always see when you talk about Rosh Chodesh, a new month, is the potential for newness, for rebirth, renewal, rejuvenation. The potential for growth is in the air on this day, on the new day that we're kicking off a new month. There is the potential to turn a leaf. So if that is something that you want to attach yourself to as you go through your day, thinking about, there's a lot of transitions, like your kids are going off to Israel, and some kids are starting camps, and who knows, we're all like transitioned. It's different seasons. You're putting away the winter stuff. You're oh, we have a birthday girl. It was worth coming just for that, right? Come sit down. Okay, so today is the new month of Tammuz, and it's also Shari's birthday, so it's a good thing. Okay. Okay, and now we're going to start our class. Okay. So this class, the class that I put together for you is on the heels of all the excitement and energy that I'm feeling about bringing singles together. I actually had a Zoom meeting with, 30, 40 singles on Sunday about, the topic was intimacy, okay? So now that topic, when I say the word intimacy, what do you think of? Like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? What's that? Okay, I thought all the girls, all these young single girls would go right there. But actually, no one said that. Right. We have longer memories. That with Bonnie, I'm telling you. So there's different ways. There's different ways of thinking about that word intimacy. Okay, I like to describe the L'chaim Center as an intimate environment, right? A place where everyone knows each other's name. It's like what's that? Cheers, right? Everyone knows each other's names, and come on in. It's your birthday. Like, you don't get that in big places, right? So there's intimacy in spaces, and there's intimacy in relationships. Okay, good. Okay, you say it as it is. So what we're going to try to do today, because first of all, this is a diverse group of women. Not everyone is married. Not everyone is in an intimate relationship. But I'd like to kind of understand why God put things into being the way that things are in the world. We're going to go back to the very beginning. I'm going to try to give some Torah sources and understand what God's mission is for us. If we are trying, we have been learning for 2 years all about interpersonal relationships. It seems like that has to be a very important part of our work here in this world, because otherwise, why didn't God give the Torah to angels, right? Angels are perfect. They're singing God's praises. They're up in the higher realms. Why not give the Torah to them? And this is actually a Talmudic discussion. Does anyone have an answer for me? Why do you think God gave it to us, mortals, humans, imperfect people?
Free choice.
Free choice. Okay, if God gave it to the angels, they're yes people. They're like, you got it, God. We're all in. They don't have an evil inclination. It's not hard for them to make decisions because they're angels, right? They're angels. They're perfect.
What good is the Torah going to do up where everything is perfect?
Exactly. So the Torah had to be given to us people that are in relationship with other people. So to start this class, what I'd like to say is the greatest thing that a person could achieve in this world is oneness with another human being. There's nothing that could substitute for that, right? Especially today, in today's day and age, where we have so many online relationships, right? And there's more and more tech. I mean, I don't even want to go into the AI chat GBT, but I saw like a little clip of it and it looked like a woman that was like a real person, but it was actually not. And I think this is, I mean, we're scared for what is to come in the world with this new technology. But no matter how good the technology is, it will never replicate the feeling one person could have with another human being, right? We just need to, and this is how God created the world. He put this into motion from the very, very beginning, that we are supposed to strive. I feel like I can't see you, birthday girl. I'm just gonna move this over a teeny drop because you look so beautiful today. Okay, yes, now I see. Okay, good. Okay, so.
You're gonna know it.
Oh,
yeah.
No, I'm not. I have a question. Yeah, I understand the intimacy that you're talking about between a man and a woman, but there's also a lot of other.
Okay, let's start with that.
Relationships.
Let's start with that.
Can be intimate without being physical.
1000%. I want to touch upon all of them. Okay, so let's just start with when I said what is intimacy. You know, Bonnie told us her feeling. There's many ways of using that word, that term, and that concept. So there's actually 4 kinds of intimacy out there. Okay, 4 kinds. Bonnie, you said the physical intimacy. That's very often what we think of when we hear the word intimacy. What are the other kinds of intimacy, Susie? Give me one more.
You can have a friend.
Okay, so what would that be called? Emotional. That's emotional intimacy. Excellent.
Spiritual.
Excellent. Spiritual intimacy, which I don't think that one was not as commonly thought of. So excellent, Janice. And there's one other type. Excellent. Intellectual. Okay. Now, when you think of different kinds of, let's say, affairs, you could have a physical affair. You could have an emotional affair. Could you have an intellectual affair?
Yes.
For sure, with a coworker where you're so into their mind or their ideas or whatever it is, definitely. So we see how intimacy also has danger to it because it is so powerful. Okay, so those are the 4 areas. Okay, physical, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual. 4 areas of intimacy. Now yes.
I don't think that they're exclusive to one.
100%.
Relationship could have
All of them.
multiple.
Oh,
The
totally.
active relationship could have it.
Okay, so I want to give you a provocative example. Okay, don't imagine it, but kind of imagine a prostitute. Okay, now everyone in this room has a feeling of ugh.
No.
No, you don't? Okay, fine. Profession. Okay, fine. That's fine. We spoke about this when I shared about my trip to Thailand, how when I heard from them, like it was like kind of eye-opening that they're just making an honest living. So, okay, fine. But usually, okay, so you're very involved. Okay, you're very involved. Okay, not even the okay. What is it? You guys need to go for lunch after this. Okay, when you use the image of a prostitute, it smells a little bit bad to most people.
I think smell was a really bad choice.
It feels not. She can't make class, ladies. Let's get there. Okay. It feels hard to accept for most people. Why? Because what we're saying is you could have my body, but you can't have my love. You can't have my emotions. You can't have my heart. You can't have my mind. You can't have anything. It's an interaction on a very limited level that the reason subconsciously that many of us might feel like not so positive about a relationship like that is because that's not what it's supposed to be. A relationship is supposed to have many more components than just physical. It's not an interaction.
I think it could be though, if, you know, I do, I think if a person, let's say a man came to the same prostitute all the time, they could have some kind of.
Something. Something.
So
You don't
maybe-
think about the emotional.
So maybe that would become something, but really an interaction where you're like, I'll give you this, you give me that. There's something lacking in it. I'm just talking from a Jewish perspective. There's something lacking. It's transactional. That's not what this is. And listen, I've counseled many married people in my life, and you know, I remember this one lady that was so exhausted after having so many kids with little babies. And she would say to me like, oh, like I'm so exhausted at night. I have no strength to be with my husband. So she would say something to her husband like, just don't wake me up. You know, so on one level, is that intimacy? It's not.
No.
Okay, that is
It's
hurtful. It could be hurtful, but poor girl, she was so exhausted. Like, it wasn't coming from a bad place, but that, Sue, would be, that's actually sex.
Yeah.
And
There's a
sex and sexual intimacy are two very, very different things. Very different things. So if we're trying to understand what intimacy is, it has to do with two people. It has to do with the proximity between the two people on those four levels: physical, emotional, spiritual, intellectual. You might not hit all four. You might never think your partner is intellectual. Like you might never reach that area. But at least on 2 to 3 areas, you're hitting it because it's not transactional. Okay, now let's go back to some of the other relationships that we could experience intimacy in. Okay, so we said friends. Okay, give me another one. Work, okay, so that's the intellectual usually, or friendship, it could be emotional.
There's those times also, work or whatever, that your intimate relationship with a male, female, or whoever it is, could be everything but the sexual, and it's actually crossing a line.
Oh, totally.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that's the other
Right,
flip
those
side
are-
of
those
it.
are- they're-
Because it's actually a little bit
almost
more
more.
gray line,
Yes.
right? We're not sure, am I crossing a line, right?
Just because
Very
you're not
good.
doing anything, so
You know you are.
You know, good rule of thumb is if you think so,
you are.
Yeah.
if you're wondering about it.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
probably-
for sure,
That's emotional.
okay.
You have
So-
intimacy with your children.
So there are,
Yeah.
okay, very good. So Paula said with your children, right?
About a teacher and a student.
A teacher
Yeah.
student, there are many beautiful relationships. So this is what the Torah says about these relationships. I love these words. Nafsho, his soul, kishura is tied, linafsho, to his soul, or his soul is tied to her soul. There's a tying together of souls, which really, if you think about that friendship that you might have in your life, that is just a beautiful, connective relationship, right? That would be, that's two souls being tied together. Hold on one second. I just someone's waiting outside.
Pick up the pay thing.
Okay, so two souls being knit or tied together. Now, could you give me a Torah example of two souls being tied together, not husband, wife? Give me an example.
Jonathan and Dave.
Good, that is my favorite example. Jonathan and David were two friends, two male friends, who, if the Torah says their souls were knitted together, they had such a strong bond, beautiful. Paula said a parent-child relationship, that's another one that we hear about again and again in the Torah. Does anyone have another, think about like,
Sisters?
okay, which sisters would you give? Because
The first one that comes to mind are Leah.
Rachel and Leah,
Yeah. but
would you say that they had an easy relationship?
No.
I mean, they certainly had, well, that's the thing, is being knitted together. We're all knitted together in a way. I mean, siblings, we're all we have the same DNA. but I guess the way that it comes out, the way that it manifests would be a closeness.
Okay.
So Ruth and Leah had very complicated relationships there.
Naomi and Ruth.
Beautiful mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. How rare is that, okay? Beautiful and rare, Naomi and Ruth. They clearly, I mean, the words Ruth says, you had it? Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful, right? But it is rare. I mean, there are many songs written about, mother-in-laws, right? For a reason, because there's a rarity, and that's why the Torah brings it out as one of those bonds that's on a soul level of being so connected and united. So we know that it's not only physical relationships in this pursuit of intimacy. Okay, good. I want to get to the Torah part.
About twins.
Ooh, that's so interesting. Okay, you know what? I think I'm gonna jump in over there. Okay, can I jump in on this? Okay, so I'm gonna go to, I have 3 books that I'd like to read from today. One of the questions is, why didn't God create the first 2 people as identical twins? Okay, because you would think if you're born from the same sac or from the same womb or whatever, raised together right next to each other, you would think you would be so close. Now, we do have some moms in this room of twins. So do you want to speak to that? How 2 people from
And
the
there's
same,
also twins in this room.
they were not in the same
Yeah.
sac, but I mean, they literally lived in your stomach rent free for 9 months together. Okay, and we're raised together, and yet they're so different from each other. So different. So could you say blanket statement that twins are knit together? What do you say?
But
There's a closeness.
There's a closeness.
It's a closeness. Could twins be separated at birth? Definitely. Sometimes like bringing them back together, there's all these social experiments that have been done on twins, like, I'm sure you've heard about the triplets that were split, like crazy things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna have that soul connection. You might be closer to another sibling than your own twin. That's possible. Okay, so very good question. And that's actually one of the questions that start off this chapter in this book by Rebbetzin Tzipora Heller. Okay, so I'm just gonna go take a step back. I'm gonna take a step back. When God created, this one, okay, this one is called Here You Are. I love pulling out this book when it's Rosh Chodesh, because there's usually some beauty for the month. This month there wasn't so much. It just shared a little bit about the tragedies that are happening. There's like 5 tragedies that started out in this month. So I didn't really want to focus too much on that. So I'm just going on with the next chapter, which is called Outer World, Inner World. Okay, so here we start. We're gonna go back in time to understand how God put things in motion for us to now pull into our lives why bonding and closeness in relationships is the most important thing we could do in our lifetime. Okay, so going back to the beginning, and I also have this other book that I'd love to read from, which is called Holy Intimacy. So I'm going to try to go back and forth between these 2. Let's start over here with Tzipora Heller. So when God created man, okay, this is before Eve was created. Okay, it says in the Torah, book of Genesis, male and female, he created them. Okay, male and female, he created them, and God blessed them. This is one person, the first them. This is the initial, like, isn't it so powerful? I mean, I have many relatives that like, I've shared this with many people in my life that are also struggling with their kids and gender identities. It's so clear that we are all male and female. That was the original being. And then God separated us into 2. And there's a lot.
There was the trouble.
There's a lot of confusion that happens from the first initial, scene in the Torah, right? It was supposed to be such a different, easygoing experience. The Garden of Eden, everything's so perfect. You didn't need to work. You didn't need to go through pain. There was no mortality. You didn't die. Right? Adam and Eve just eating from the fruit of the vines and just like being, just like basking in God's radiance. And God says, one thing I want you to do, not to do, don't eat from that tree of good and evil. Spoiler alert, they ate, okay? And we have been dealing with the ramifications ever since. So a lot changes at this moment. There's a lot of things that we could discuss that change and happen at this moment in time, because what happens right away, before them eating from the tree, they were naked and they were not embarrassed. That's what the Torah says. As soon as they eat, they realize that they're naked. It's the first experience of shame in the entire Torah. And we all know that shame is the root of so many issues that we carry through our entire lives. The root of it is feeling shamed at one point, and to shake that feeling. So this is the first instance of shame. And a lot changes. Childbirth is hard, raising children is hard, man has to go and work, mortality, right? People die. All of this changes at this exact moment. But the worst thing that happens, I mean, I don't know what's the worst, but one of the things that change in this moment is that now we have to decide for ourselves the difference between good and evil. It is not clear to us anymore. We have both things happening, good, bad. We need to make, free will comes into being, right? Until then, it was like, what are you gonna, obviously they had free will the whole time because they chose to eat from that tree. But now all of a sudden, everything good, everything bad, everything gray, they need to navigate that. And what happens, unfortunately, is people start abusing things. People start abusing relationships. People start abusing sexuality, right? Until then, it was not complicated. People start abusing substances, food, drink, right? It was never an issue until this moment of, oh, now I need to choose, and this is hard. Okay, so let's now go back into the sources. Why do you think God created first man? Like, what's the, when you're making like a model of something, it's like
A matrix.
a prototype. The first prototype of man, Adam, right? Why did God create it as a them, a he, she, with all an androgynous being, with all male and female in one, and then, right? And with everything totally complete as this man was. And then God says it's not good for man to be alone. A big statement in the Torah, because this is something, if you think about it, the reason that people in our world suffer so much, the number one reason is feeling lonely. You could be in a community, you could be in a family, you could have so many people, but many people are feeling lonely, even surrounded by people. So that loneliness is something that is so inside of us that we can't shake it. And God wants this. He doesn't want man to be alone. He doesn't want that. So he wants, okay, and here's another reason. Okay, God says, God did not want the first human creation to be alone, for if it would then possess an illusion of self-sufficiency. Oh, this is very interesting, okay? And note, there is no biblical word for independence in the Torah, okay? It's a modern word, right? And you guys know the word for independence because we have Independence Day, Yom HaAtzmaut. Atzmaut is a modern creation of a new word, okay? There's no word for independence in the Torah because God actually does not want us to be self-sufficient. The world tells us, if you're self-sufficient, you are powerful, right? And one of my Zumba songs that I dance to like a couple times a week is, that, I don't know who even sings it, but I'm sure, flowers. I could buy myself flowers. I could take myself for a walk in the sand, right? I could take myself to the movie theaters. I don't need anybody in my life. Like, it's so anti-Jewish values because Judaism, from the very root, God is saying, you're not supposed to be alone. Have people to have connection, deep, meaningful connection with. You don't need to do this on your own, and it's not good for a person to be alone, okay? So this independence is really not what we're going for. That man sitting on the mountaintop, in meditation all day, he might be a holy man that doesn't talk to anybody, or, is only, sitting like that all day, connecting to the higher realms. But that's actually not what we're supposed to do. That is not considered holiness in Judaism. It might be for the Dalai Lama, it might be for other religions, right? There are monks that literally isolate themselves for periods of time. And there's, you know, you could go to retreats where you're in silence for weeks at a time or days at a time. That's not what God wants of us. We're supposed to use our mouth for good to build worlds. We don't just silence ourselves. We don't walk around with duct tape. Okay? So God wanted to fashion the human being in two separate people in order to create a healthy situation of dependence on each other and yearning and mutual giving. Human beings are not meant to be alone because then they would have no one to give to, no one to grow with, and nothing to strive for. To actualize oneself spiritually, a human being cannot be alone. Okay, so are there questions? Okay, God created us as one. Why one and then separate us? There are many, many answers for this, many reasons for this, but does anyone want to, give out, why do you think? Why would God
be alone?
So why would he originally make us as one and then separate us into two?
It was a prototype, so he figured he had the wrong.
God, he doesn't make mistakes.
This one doesn't work, let's make a better one.
Oh.
Okay. I don't think God made any mistakes, but there's messaging in everything. So one, if we were created as one, that means what?
That means we are,
We-
that there's more similarities between men and women.
Okay. Okay, good.
If you look hard.
I'm not sure. I think it's the opposite. I think
Yeah.
instead of being the same, he wanted us to be different and to grow from each other's strengths.
Okay.
So
So knowing the oneness and then being separated, first of all, that means that deep in our subconscious psyche, we know that we're lacking something when we're not with others. And there's like a lacking, a yearning, because we were once one and then we were separated. So that means there's something that needs to be filled.
and you also have to learn to work together. So there's God wants unity ultimately. So if you're unified to begin with, then there's no opportunity for growth. But if you're unified and then separated, you know what it is to be unified, but you have to work together towards your goal.
Right. Okay, good. Okay, beautiful. So I'm gonna just read you a little bit. So going back to the twins, why didn't God just create two identical beings like man and, why didn't God split Adam down the center? He didn't do that. Where did he get woman from? The rib, right? Which is a whole tangent. The rib, it says vayiven, that God built woman from the rib, right? And that word shows us that women have bina from that word, like that God built. Bina is intuition, that women have this extra dose of intuition and understanding. Okay, so there's a lot about how he built women. Everything is meaningful. Okay, this prototype was well thought out. There was no mistakes over here. Yes.
And ribs protect the heart.
Ooh, okay. Never thought of that one, but beautiful. Okay, so here, I'm just going to read you a little bit more from this book. So God created, the way that God created it was in order to maximize giving. The recipient must be different from the giver. Okay, it wasn't like a one split down the middle. It was two separate people with two, if there were two identical people, giving can occur, but it's limited, right? One would only give based on his or her own needs. So now let's go back, right? Do you guys understand that?
Yeah.
If it's so simple, like let's say you're buying your best friend a birthday present. If she's different to you, which chances are she is, she might not want the all-star, right? She might not want the all-white couch that you have in your living room, right? She might want something else, but what does that take? It takes you going out of yourself, seeing someone else in front of you, understanding there's empathy involved, there's time, there's devotion, dedication to learn someone else, right? There's so much that has to go in to being in relationship with another human being. Yeah.
That maybe having that original feeling of being one is something to strive for. Maybe it never leaves.
I think so. I think the prototype is what we're always trying to get back to. And actually, when two people stand under a chuppah it is the souls become one for that moment. And then the rest of our life in a relationship has to be striving to really, really merging those two half souls to become one. So the oneness in the beginning, that's the prototype. Then we're separated and we go through so much in this experience in this world, but the whole mission is to come back to oneness. It's oneness in a marriage. It's oneness in every relationship that you could think of. Who doesn't want oneness with their child? Who doesn't want to be on the same page as their coworker, right? That oneness is the ultimate relationship in any relationship, okay? So we have a lot to work towards. Okay, just flip a little. Okay, so the big question, I'm stopping in the book for a minute. I might go back, I'm jumping around a little bit. The $1 million question is how? How do we get that intimacy in our relationships? Okay, that's the $1 million question. Okay, and we've given some ideas. We have shared some ideas, but I'd like to expand a little bit. Okay, so the first example in the Torah, same, going back to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Just hold on 1 second. Oh.
What did I miss?
Try that, just like that.
Eve,
Thank you.
Eve.
Yes, sorry. No problem.
One of the things that we always
I
talk
just
about at
realized.
weddings is the Baal Shem Tov.
Yeah.
From every human being, there rises a light that reaches straight to heaven. And when two souls are destined to be together and they find each other, their streams of light flow together and a single brighter light goes forth from their united being.
Wow, it's beautiful, beautiful. Maybe you want to share that with me and I can share it with the whole class. It's gorgeous. Okay, so let's now go to some of the things that would bring people together. Okay, so it's $1 million question, right? We all want intimacy in our relationships. So the first example of intimacy in the Torah is in a physical realm. Okay, so it is husband and wife together, which is one of the four. And the way that it's described, so it says, V'ha Adam, and the man, Yada et Chava. He knew the woman. Okay, that word "knew" is a euphemism for physical intimacy. And he knew her. By the way, it says this, I don't know how many, probably a dozen times throughout the Torah. That it says, and he knew her, ... and they had a child. That's what it says in the Torah. Really, everyone, all the forefathers, they were all busy. They were happily busy. And they had children. And he knew her, and they gave birth to a child. So let's just analyze this word, and he knew. To know, what does it mean to know somebody? Why is it so important to learn about somebody? By the way, I don't want to go off on a big tangent about gender differences and all there's a lot of confusion out there in the world today. And I'm not taking a stand because we love all people. We accept all people. This is who we are. There's no judgment in this place, only love. And there is some complexities in the Torah about that. I remember actually talking to my rabbi in Israel about it. This is years ago, before now it's so much more of a complex situation. Years and years ago, I asked my rabbi about gays and lesbians and there's certain things that are allowed, there's certain things that are frowned upon in the Torah, and how do we work with that? Because we still, even though the Torah says something, we still welcome all people. It has nothing to do with the person. No person is bad, no person is wrong, right? Some of the actions might not be, recommended in the Torah, and it's complex to hold all of that. I represent someone that strives to understand the Torah, and I struggle with it, okay? So what my rabbi once said, and this is going back before it was such a heated issue, was, Eve, it is so easy for a woman and a woman to be so close together. He said, is that true? And I'm like, yeah, like my whole life is working with women. Like I could be best buds with anyone. He said, how is it as easy for you to totally get your male partner, your spouse? I'm like, no, Like, it's so hard to understand, like, what are you thinking? Like, you know, there's the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, like,
Yeah.
literally two. Okay, so he said, the Torah wants us, the prototype in a way, wants us to stretch ourselves. That it's gonna be two different people. It's not like a split down the middle. It's gonna be a rigid, ragged puzzle piece that's not gonna easily fit together. That's where the growth lies. That's what he told me so many years ago. I don't know if he would give that same example today. And I think a lot has changed. And once again, we only have compassion and welcome people however they are. Okay. But do you understand the root of it? By the way, okay.
No, I'm not.
Do you understand to answer your question from before? No, but does everyone,
Yeah.
does that resonate with people?
I scare you what I'm gonna say. I was gonna answer your question before.
But I just want to know if that resonates with anyone. Like, of course it's easier. Like, we get each other, right? It's simpler, right? Okay, so I mean, it kind of, and yes, our life is not supposed to be so easy. It's supposed to be challenging. And that's where, you know, like a marriage, a relationship between a man and a woman, I've heard this analogy of like a diamonds being like, you know, like going on a wheel, like the old way that used to polish and cut diamonds was like, it's a lot of friction. So it's gonna be much harder, right? But you're gonna shine something. Yeah.
That concerns me that you're concerned I'm gonna say something
No,
controversial.
I just wanted to say that in the most sensitive way possible, because you know that.
I'm not quite sure what you were trying to say there, so I'm not gonna. Anyways, I'm going to answer the question that you said before, is how somebody know is to completely see them for who they are, which people say all the time, but here's the part that they don't understand, which is what I always say. Just because you see somebody for who they are, doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but it's honoring them. And that's the part of, so I guess here's the controversial part that I will say. This is the part that I do have a problem with when you're saying you live with somebody who's trying to be along with the Torah studying. If we say we accept all Jews, right? So that's supposed to be the point. You should accept everybody. It doesn't mean you have to agree, but you love everybody no matter what, which means we accept them as a Jew. You don't have to agree. You're not living their life.
Right.
But you love them.
Right.
And so that's okay. You're a Jew, you're accepted, and that's okay. I wouldn't do that, but I'm not you. I wasn't born you. I don't have your DNA. But because you're telling me that's who you are, I love you and accept it.
Right, it's seeing the divinity in another human being. We all have the same amount of divinity.
Yes.
Jew, not Jew, it doesn't matter. Everyone is created in the image of God.
Yeah.
And everyone has their hardships and their struggles.
And here's
their things. And I once said to one of my kids my kids were very, you know, if someone says something judgmental in our house, we don't put up with it. So one of my kids probably got something from school and said something a little bit derogatory. And I said, why do you choose to, you know, talk badly or to judge someone just because he may sin differently to you?
Right. So
Meaning, get off your high horse. You gossiped yesterday and I heard it, or you weren't bad, you weren't nice to your brother. Why is that any worse than someone else's sin or someone else's thing? Right? We're not
But
gonna.
here's my favorite thing that I always say. The second, if you really truly think about something, whatever it is you're judging, if it happened, and you'll never know because unless it happens to you, and you may or may not, but I always say all of us moms are mama bears, right? The second something happens in your family, all of a sudden you have a change of heart, right? No matter what the situation, you become the biggest advocate.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not necessarily, I'm sorry.
Not necessarily, and that's what I said. You don't know because everybody has a different DNA, a different history, a different tolerance, a different.
But the things that you go through,
Right.
you know, for the better and for the worse, open you up to acceptance.
So
of all of them.
everybody, why should your life affect somebody else's? If you don't care, if you think to yourself, I don't think transgender is good for you and your family. How does that affect you?
Right.
How does that affect you? Doesn't mean that maybe I do or don't. I don't know. I've never really given
So
it
that,
enough
you know,
thought.
that we've learned this many times, but when we talk about judgment, it says, don't judge someone until you get into their shoes. Meaning, until you're in that position, until your child is going through the hardship, and by the way, all of the issues that are out there in the world, they don't discriminate. I mean, I have an Orthodox Rebbitzin friend who has a child that's struggling with this issue right now in a serious way, and it doesn't.
God, but God made that person. So explain
Yeah,
this to me.
you're
God made that person.
Of course, so it's really, so it's, you're right.
Just like made somebody with autism or
For
made
sure,
somebody
For sure, we all
who
have our
has.
customized obstacle course in front of us to
Right.
overcome. Did someone else have their hand? Yes.
Just read about, but during the Holocaust, it could have been in one of the camps or, but there was an Asian woman and the European woman, and I'm not sure of the Asian woman's religion. Anyhow, they became very close, intimately, physically and intellectually.
Mhm.
And sadly for them, after the war, they were separated. That was so painful.
Mm.
And miraculously, they got back together. So you are
Wow.
talking about relationship of women.
Yeah, which is not,
From different
it's not as complicated, according to the Torah, for women to be in those intimate relationships with each other. That is not something that doesn't seem to be an issue. It is a little bit more complicated according to the Torah about males. So that's an extra hurdle that it's hard to make sense of it. Okay, so we spoke about knowing. Okay, one way to intimacy is knowledge, right? To love someone, you really need to know them. That means there's time and sharing and listening and devotion and identifying with that person, but going outside of yourself, like all those constant efforts. Let's now go into some other ways of intimacy. How can we get there? How can you, yes.
I'm just saying that the sharing has to come from both ends.
Oh, totally. So vulnerability, right? Like on both sides. By the way, everything, it's to be in a deep relationship, obviously, we're talking about two people. That's what the whole thing is about. The proximity of two people towards each other. That is a definition of intimacy. Okay, so excellent. If it's one person, I mean, very painful in a marriage when there's only one person that's willing to put in the work. It doesn't work like that, right? Okay, good. Let's now go into another level of how to develop intimacy. Does anyone want to, yes? Okay, good. So the listening has to do with the knowing, right? Like to really hear someone out. It also takes time, okay? So one of the beautiful blessings that we say every Friday night, we raise up a cup filled with wine, we make kiddush, borei pri hagefen. Now, why is it this geffen that's always front and center at every wedding ceremony? We have Gail Bick here, just under the chuppah with a glass of wine, she's on Zoom. Right? We have wine at every moment of elevation, the Passover Seder, Friday night, always wine. We elevate this wine, borei pri hagefen. Tell me about wine. Katie, you like a good glass of wine, right? Okay. So do I. Okay, so what is it? What are some of the qualities? There has to be a depth to it. Why is it wine that's always front and center at every bonding experience?
Because of the growth and how they grow on the vine.
Okay, I wasn't even thinking about that, but like the Hebrew words for inve hagefen, like the wine, inve hagefen, inve hagefen, these are the words that we sing under the chuppah, that we want our relationship like to grow like these beautiful vines. What is the quality? The quality. What's the underlying quality of wine that violin? There's okay, so sometimes it's sweet, there's different sweet wine.
But it can make you a little like buzzed.
Yeah, so you kind of lose some, okay, but it tells you there's truth there, which is vulnerability. Something else we know about wine.
You make it by squishing.
Okay, so there's a squeezing, which that is something. The better the wine, the more squishing. That means you have to go through something hard to get. It's going to take effort. But the most, what'd you say? Okay, so there's a lot of connections, like the fruit of the vine, like the fruit of our womb. Like there's a lot of blessings there. But wine gets better with time. The aging process, that means commitment, It means devotion. Any relationship that you invest time into, and at the beginning, think about, certain relationships at the beginning are a little awkward. Like you meet someone, you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be friends with them or whatever it is. Like any relationship, there's almost like an awkwardness in the initial stages before you could kind of go deeper. So it's committing yourself to the long haul of a relationship, even if things are not always smooth. I'm committed to seeing this through. I want to build a deep, meaningful relationship with this human being. So that's another beautiful thing. So we said to know, and there's also the time aspect. Is there anything else anyone wants to think of that could add? I'm gonna read something. Okay, okay, so I'm gonna give honesty. Okay, good. What often gets in between ourselves and being one with another person?
Ego.
Okay, so there's ego. Okay, very often ego means it's what you think of yourself, right? So that your head, it's not real necessarily, it's just in your head. Okay, but if we could take that a step further, very often those voices turn into inhibitions. Okay, and what I mean with this, I'm going to give an example for physical intimacy. Okay, and maybe we could bring this to other areas of intimacy, but our sages. Okay, this is hundreds of years ago. This is oral Torah that was written hundreds of years ago. Actually says, this is only about physical intimacy, so bear with me if you could. Okay, it says the most important sex organ is the brain. Huh?
Yes.
The quality of intimacy has to do with feeling valued, cherished, respected, safe, and cared for. What happens in the bedroom is nourished by what happens in every other room of the house. When we are calm, happy, and feel fulfilled, we fuel our intimate relationship. In like manner, the loving expressions we share in our inner sanctum, the kissing, hugging, and cuddling, no less than actual intercourse, lends meaning to every other aspect of our lives. Just as a soul animates a body, a husband and wife's shared emotional bond animates the couple's physical intimacy. Emotional intimacy, much like physical intimacy, differs from each couple, and even for the same couple, at different points in their life together. Intimacy is always about that feeling of closeness that invites vulnerability and a sense of security. It provides a license to share personal feelings and feel assured that your partner will show understanding, affirmation, and care. Emotional intimacy, like physical intimacy, is about closeness, which includes feelings of trust, respect, tenderness, and passion. It contains the powerful elements of exclusivity and safe haven, the assumptions that what you are about to share with this person is unique and that they will always have your back. So there's trust. Someone said honesty, trust. It's like you just knowing it's going to be okay. Someone will be there for me. That opens you up to allowing yourself to be more vulnerable with another human being. Okay, so now hundreds of years ago, our sages gave us some, I would say, prescriptions for physical intimacy. None of these are law, by the way. This is not halacha. But one of the things that, choose to use it, choose to not use it, whatever you want, it's very interesting. One of the things that our sages said hundreds of years ago is that when two people are physically intimate with each other, it should be when the room is dark. So in those days, it was at night, right? Because it was like natural lighting, right? So it should be, sexual intimacy should be during nighttime. Now, this is not law, so it doesn't need to be, and nowadays close the blinds, whatever. It's not law. But I'm wondering how our sages knew, because nowadays, let's move forward hundreds of years. One of the things that prevents physical intimacy in our generation is that we, no matter how gorgeous we are, and how beautiful every human being is, because a perfect body is one that wakes up and takes a breath, right? It's not, you don't need to be like this airbrushed model that you see in the magazines. You are beautiful just because you have a soul, you have a body, it's functioning, you're alive. Like that's enough to be absolutely breathtakingly gorgeous. But in our generation, the inhibitions that we carry about our body image actually prevents us from being fully able to be intimate with another human being. Does everyone agree with this? So isn't that crazy? I always sometimes I struggle with the words of our sages. I'm like, really? Why? Why does it have to be like this? But I feel that our sages, very often, they know us better than we know ourselves. They're going into the psyche of a human being. They want everyone to feel completely able to let go. And I'm going to read you guys a beautiful quote, okay? If you want to truly see each other, shut the lights on all the externals so that you can have your eyes wide open to what is essential. That's what our sages were telling us, to go beyond, put the inhibitions down, dedicate yourself with the time, with the devotion, all that it takes to really be present for another human being. Because intimacy is not something you can experience by yourself. Isn't that powerful? The ultimate relationship is not something you could do solo. Much of our Judaism is doing it solo. It's us and God. That is not what we have been focusing on. We have been focusing on the relationship, the interpersonal relationships between two human beings that are so different from each other. Even if you grew up in the same womb, you're so different from each other, right? So, yes. So that is how I think we're going to end here. We're going to end here with that powerful idea that intimacy is something you cannot experience by yourself. And I'll share one more quote to end. That intimacy refers to the level of proximity between two people. So that's what I want you guys to take home with and to work on it in all of your relationships. That intimacy it usually refers to the level of proximity between two people. Okay? It is nothing that you could do solo. And it is one of the highest levels. By the way, think about it like there's so many examples in the Torah where God, all he cares about is how we interact with each other. God is willing to erase his name. Give me an example. Sota, right? The complicated relationship between a husband and wife that are not trusting of each other. God says, write my holy name on this parchment, put it in the water, my name will erase into the water, she should drink the water. It's all this coming back together of this couple, hopefully, if he could bring the couple back together, hopefully, right? And you see how God is willing to erase his name for two people to come together, okay? Is there another example that you could think of God saying, I care so much about how my human beings in the world get together with each other, how they relate to each other. Give me another example. I mean, why did God destroy the world? Why was the flood brought about?
Just, Dad walked in, I said herrings. That's true love.
Okay, but going back to the example of when God brought the flood to the world in the times of Noah, the world was corrupt between man and fellow man, right?
Destruction in the temple.
Destruction of the temple, baseless hatred. God says, I can't take this. I'm willing to, God sacrificed it. It was his home. It was the place for his high Shekinah, the presence of God to rest. God destroyed it twice, right? It's so painful for God, right? The greatest example, when you have the story of the flood, right? Where man was bad to man, the next story, shortly after in the Torah, is the story of the Tower of Babel. That was when man was not bad to man. Man was bad to God. They were trying to rebel against God. God doesn't destroy the world from that. He puts everyone in their place. They're separated into different languages. But it shows us how God cares so much more about our interpersonal relationships. He's willing to overcome his honor. It's not about God's honor. They were creating a tower to rebel against Hashem, and Hashem says, okay, I'm going to give you a little time out. I'm not going to destroy you though, but when man is bad to man, I need to destroy you. We need to do something very, very serious. So it just shows how important it is to be one with another human being. Okay, You guys have homework. Thank you all, and I hope to see you guys tonight. I'm really excited, 7:30 tonight, and I want to hear your feedback, and if you haven't signed up yet, you know what to do, okay? Thank you all, so good to see you. Awesome. I'm good. Thank you. Guys, if you want to hear the topic for tonight, it's such an interesting topic, okay? Tonight's topic is so interesting. What is it? It's, okay, so she's talking about how to find God on your travels. There's a lot of people here that like to travel. Her spirituality in finding her place, the place called home. And she's going to be taking us through a journey. She's a woman that has gone to many third world countries and volunteered and run trips. And she's a very interesting human being. And we're gonna be learning how to find spirituality wherever you are in the world, and how travel can add to our own mission as a Jew. So I think I hope that's basically what it is.
Said he had an aha moment.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. We'll see you tonight.
He said he had an aha moment in the desert. So it can definitely happen. Definitely gonna happen. I'll be there. I just want Well, there's. I think this is. But I mean, it's not. Of us in the girl, the 14 was taking a picture. Look at us. With this being my favorite. Standing right, sitting next to, in memory of Bo James Daly, who lost his life at this time. That's how they walk out in the moment. Okay, God, what did he do? Climbing the rock as he was. That's exactly right. There was a thing in, it's called the Gemini. And it's just like, it's like you jump across. No, a lot of them died. Well, but there's a. One of the. I think terrible. I've never seen myself. I've never did. He thought about this, but you ended up, you wanted to show you. That it's like, it's different. I mean, well, my other one after that. Oh, so that, and my dad, and so. And it's a different type of prayer.
I wasn't like,
It was like, the funny thing is that when I want to, it wasn't. So I actually wanted to look at
like, not yet, and she's like.
there wasn't enough room. But I mean, it's not fancy prayer, but not. No. We did the emergency oriented. I was just gonna say, I had a cousin. Yeah, I took,
But like, that was crazy during.
I mean, it is my 60th. But you know, I like to drive. I love to drive. I don't know. Well, I love to drive. I just took a myself. I did like driving. Boy, was I like driving.
I don't think they're, oh, yeah.
First of all, Colorado's gonna put a lot of traffic circles. I mean, whatever we want, there's traffic circles, which are hard enough when you're driving on the road. But imagine driving on the wrong side of the road, trying to figure out.
It sounds like.
A friend of mine. For us gringos. Well, we figured that was. And so, and we are up to my sweetheart, who's 63 years old. And you want to have your bring
And I kept saying, I don't need them under too much. No, you're gonna be fine. You're ordering you. Well, it was 2 days until we found out. There was about 50 years more coming in. Okay, so I'm tired. We're in the kids. And we can't. I can't. And I've gone around twice wherever I was. And I'm like, I said to them, going now. Anyone. Oh, get to a point. We say it was the worst. Well, then. I'll tell you what. We were very young. We were very ready to kill. I mean, and it was a crazy idea. You know, very good for us. I know you look the same.
Just read this. Oh, there might be that.
Yes. SHARIES. Okay, well, so I was born Shari. My parents are from Boston. And I changed it to Shari. Because it was like.
Do you have an
you're gonna be Sherry or? My last name is Cher, that does not help. Oh. You're so funny. What's your favorite Yeah. I know, but I meant Steve Cher. I'm like, are you kidding me? Sherry Cher. The reason I said it was because my husband's grandfather was named. Oh, that makes sense. I was thinking after Samuel, yeah, Shmuel. That's so funny. Yeah, there's a lot of accents. Yeah. Nice meeting you. Nice to meet you too. Thank you. Meeting in Upward. Yeah.
Yes, go in there, you like sounds great. There's just so many, my kids are home, like I'm loving having, I know that sounds crazy, other than the mess and the. I know, it's so much. God, my husband doesn't eat that much, so it's like all of us, and it's just, I'm always on. In fact, I talked to them also in the thing, and Denise wanted to just be in the tent, and like, she's like, "Mom, take her out." Yeah, so that's always great.
Which that's fabulous.
Yeah. There's not much there. Very.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Very nice, right? Yeah. The meeting, I'm hoping is not gonna go too long.
So. Oh, right. He's so excited for you. She's knocking out 4 fragments.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Much nicer.
So maybe you're not good at something.
Yeah. So if I'm trying to edit, I'm on, I have the air. Oh, I got it. Oh, okay.
Oh, so it'd be like, right?
It's the weirdest mouse. We're literally.
Right.
I don't want to be, oh God, I would.
I know, it's like, I don't want to see myself.
Thank you.
Where's the little mouse?
But
There's the arrow.
Mm.
Okay.